Hi, I'm Guy Powell, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing. If you haven't already done so, please visit prorelevant.com and sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. I'm the author of the newly released book, The Post-COVID Marketing Machine, Prepare Your Team to Win. And you can find more information about this at marketingmachine.prorelevant.com. There's so many things going on in marketing today, but CMOs need to stay one step ahead while they help their businesses succeed in the marketplace. Many times they are a challenger brand, and that's what we're going to be talking about today with John Gumas. So let me tell you a little bit about John. John is the CMO of Gumas, an award-winning, full-service San Francisco advertising agency and the country's foremost authority on challenger brand marketing. John is also the author of two books, Marketing Smart and Challenger Brand Marketing, which describe how challenger brands can effectively develop marketing strategies to take on their largest competitors. Welcome, John.
Hi, Guy. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do like those baseballs behind you there. And we've already talked a little bit about that, so we're going to leave that off at the moment. So anyway, aside from baseball, tell us how you got into marketing. What is your backstory on marketing?
Well, it's I think like many entrepreneurs or people that have been in an industry for a long time, it's a passion, right? It's not a career, it's a passion, and I've been lucky enough to be able to live out my passion, and my passion has always been marketing. I actually have a degree in marketing from San Francisco State University, and I've been fortunate enough to have my company for almost 40 years. And I'm as excited today as I was 40 years ago because, like I said, it's a passion. And there's a lot of advertising agencies out there, but this company started in I'm not sure if it's a common way, but back when I graduated from college, I started working for some of the big ad agencies, and it seemed like I would sit there that everything about their approach was based on dollars, was based on money, was based on how much money do you have to spend. And I remember sitting in meetings in these conference rooms and prospective clients would come in who'd have phenomenal ideas. I mean, absolutely incredible ideas. And maybe at the beginning, they didn't have the multi-million-dollar budgets to spend. And I remember in the ad agency executives would say, "Yeah, sorry, we can't help you." So this happened over and over again. And I started thinking, well, where do these people go? What are they doing? I mean, because they have such great ideas. So that's what launched the concept of challenger brand marketing, and so it's a methodology that we've created 40 years ago. We own the trademark, the challenger brand marketing. As you said, we wrote the book on challenger brand marketing, and it's really designed for organizations that are not the biggest in their field. Doesn't mean they're small. I mean, Pepsi is a challenger brand to Coke, but it's all driven around a methodology that if you don't have the most money to spend, how do you strategically build a marketing plan that is going to help you properly position, grow your company, and effectively compete to where you can systematically take your company to the next level, next level, next level. So we've been doing that for 40 years, and it's been very, very successful for us and our clients.
Yeah, very interesting. As you were talking, I was thinking about there's a professor here, I think he's retired now, Jagdish Sheth, and he was a professor at Emory. And one of the things he was talking about in one of his latest books was the rule of three. So the rule of three is you have the leader in the category, then you have the first challenger, and then you kind of have the rest, so to speak. And the one that has the least amount of profit or the most difficulty is that first challenger brand, that the number two. And quite often, to your point, it has to do with whether they have a strategy to really either stay as the number two and be a strong one, or to try and take on number one and become number one. And unless they get it right, they can really be a money loser in quite a few ways. So what's your advice for the number two brands, the challenger
Yeah.
brands?
Well, that guy, that's such a good point. And the reason why, let's talk about the reason why first, that typically happens is because companies think they can, if they think they can go head to head. And the problem with going head to head with someone who has more money than you or more resources, I'm going to throw out resources as well, which could mean how many salespeople you have in the field, how much brand recognition do you have, how many retail locations you have, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, in addition to how much money do you have to spend. So if you're going to go head to head against anybody that has more resources than you will lose, or you will never achieve your full potential. So the whole concept of challenger brand marketing is truly understanding what makes you unique, understanding niche marketing, understanding positioning, and most importantly, understanding messaging, because messaging is the key to success to all challenger brands.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. And if you don't have a strong position that really is differentiated from the number one brand, then you are just going to be throwing money away. And then not only having what the right position is, but then of course, to your point, is then messaging it and making sure that your customers know about that. I think one thing that's kind of interesting, if you're the number one brand, I don't think it's enough to be able to say, well, I'm not them. You have to be more than just, I'm not the number one brand, so, Pepsi can't just say, well, we're not Coke. So you can try us. So what kind of examples do you have along those lines?
Well, challenger brands come in all shapes and sizes. They're every industry, whether it's a for-profit and nonprofit, financial services, all the way to medical devices and everything in between. You have gorillas and you have challenger brands. So when it comes to challenger brand marketing, challenger brands do not have the luxury of being wrong, right? Challenger brands need to approach marketing in a way that essentially says that we have one shot at being successful. We better not screw it up. So with that said, how do you maximize that? Well, the first thing that we see consistently from our clients is they tend to guess. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way at all, but guessing is the most dangerous thing a challenger brand can do. Because what tends to happen, all of us as human beings, right? Let's say we're within a company. We know that company so well. We live it, we breathe it every single day. So we make some assumptions. We assume people know what we know. We assume that we know what they need to hear to get them to start a conversation, buy our product. But the worst thing you can do is assume, because we have to look at our company from the outside like a prospective individual would look at our company. So challenger brand marketing is really designed and targeted to people who had never heard of your company before. And that's how you have to approach it. So how do you get somebody who has never heard of your company before to initially look at, say, just take a website for an example, right? Because it's an easy example to have here. So we have what we call a 7-second rule. You have about 7 seconds to convince somebody who's never heard of you before, who comes to your website, that I'm in the right place, you're the right company, and I need to start a conversation, or whatever the call to action is. 7 seconds, no more. And so how do you do that? So every word that you use is incredibly important. So the first thing that we tell our clients is we have to come up with a message. And then the typical response that we get is, oh, I know exactly what I need to say. This is what we need to tell them. And this is where we need to be. And I would say 99.9% of the time, what they think their audience needs to hear and what their audience actually needs to hear is different. So, so we utilize what we call a 5-step process to create a challenger brand marketing program. And the first step of that 5 steps is the most important part of the journey. And we would argue, from a marketing perspective, probably the most important thing a company will ever do in its life, and that is, the process is, or the step is called discovery. All right, it's generating research, but it's not the research that you think is common. What we do is we speak to customers. Then we also speak to the internal stakeholders, whoever they are, the CEO, the CMO, all, customer-facing individuals within the company, and we analyze their competitors. So those 3 points of data gathering is what we're looking for. Now, in the questions that we ask during that discovery process, we're not asking what color of the product do you like? Do you like the blue one or the red one? Do you like the large package or the small package? We're asking emotionally charged questions, because what we have found is one of the worst things that can happen to a company is getting the wrong information. And it's so easy for a prospective customer, or when you're interviewing someone, to give you the wrong answer, because it's the easy answer. So, and the easy answer is usually what you get. And then companies base an entire marketing program based on that, which in essence is kind of taking you down the wrong path. So we've developed a very scientific form of questioning, really designed to pull the emotion. And then as we go through the questioning, we're validating the answers as we go. So that's the first part. And of course, I've taken a really complex subject here and I'm condensing it. But once we get we speak to our customers, and we don't need to speak to a lot of them, by the way. And just a side note, these are all one-on-one telephone interviews, specifically on the telephone, because when someone looks you in the eye, like we are here on Zoom, or someone's in a focus group, you can easily be influenced. Focus groups, I'm not a big fan of, because you tend to get influenced by a small group in that. And in Zoom, when you look at somebody, you're influenced. But on the telephone, the good old-fashioned telephone, and you remember those, right? I remember those as a kid, using the telephone. You get truth, you get the real information. So that's how we conduct the interviews. So now let's move over to the internal interviews. We ask similar questions of our customers, various folks within the company. And like I said earlier, 99.9% of the time, what our customers think is not what their customers think. That delta, that difference is it's really the difference with marketing campaigns working and not working.
Yep.
So kind of going back to what I said originally, that you can't make these assumptions. You cannot guess, because it's typically what you think is not the truth. And until you know the real reason why somebody buys from you, you can't really do any marketing. You'll never achieve your full potential. So we take those 2 points of data, and then we add in the third is a full analysis of key competitors, because we need to know what their competitors are saying. Because remember, that same prospect that we're trying to reach, their competitors are talking to that same person as well. So how do we differentiate ourselves and position ourselves so what we're saying is unique from everybody else? So those are the 3. That's the first step. We gather that data. If we do that correctly, then the second step, which is the development of the strategy and the messaging, pretty much writes itself, because it's all now based on data and fact, and it's not based on emotion, our emotion, or our guessing. So from that, once we have complete that process, we have everything we need to really launch marketing campaigns.
Yeah, absolutely. And you are so right about talking to your customers, your clients' customers first. That is so critical, and first of all, it gets you a real equal seat at the table because you now have something that they may not have because, and kind of like you said, or maybe implied, is that even if you're an internal employee and you talk to your customers, you kind of have a jaded view on that. And you're listening for things that, to kind of, kind of reinforce what you already think. Whereas you and your company as an outsider talking to customers, you're kind of the independent. And plus, if you do that in the right way, where you're trying not only to get like the rational reasons why they might choose your brand, but the emotional reasons why they might choose your brand, that combination is really, really, really critical. So kudos to you on how you're doing that.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. So now, one thing that as you were talking as well, I was thinking, so you have a challenger brand, and they're, let's say that they are number 2, or they could be number 3 or number 4. If you're successful at being a challenger brand, then you are still growing. Hopefully, you're growing greater than the category. So you are increasing, your market share. At some point you may actually be able to overtake that the number 1 spot because you are growing faster than the category. And maybe that's an assumption, but normally if you want to be a successful brand, you want to, make sure that you're at least growing as fast, if not faster than the category. Does that make sense, or am I going in the wrong direction there?
No, it makes perfect sense, and you're not going in the wrong direction. But I would add to that is what we do is we really work with the C-suite to figure out where they want to go, because not everybody wants to be number 1. Believe it or not, they don't, because that's just, it may be a size or something that they just can't fulfill or do or don't want to be. And challenger brands aren't just number 2, 3, or 4. The challenger brand is all the way down to 40, 50,
okay.
100. And so yes, many times, and we have achieved this numerous times, is taking that person that was positioned at number 50 and getting them to number 1. As long as they follow the process, you will get there. But again, not all companies want to do that, and I think that's an important point to make. And we believe marketing should deliver your strategic objectives, which include growth, include sales, include so many things. So it's not just doing marketing to do marketing. You should have a vision in place. And we work with our clients to create vision. So that allows us to then identify the right KPIs that we want to monitor as we move forward, as we're moving towards this, along this journey, this path of getting them to where they want to be. Because many times the companies want us to get them to the point where they can be sold. And how do you maximize their valuation? How do you get them to the point where they're not just being sold on a multiple of cost of goods, but they're being sold on value of brand and strength of position, all these other things that increase the value of the company. So the point is, it's really have a reason, have an understanding of where you want to be, so your marketing can actually deliver that for you.
No, that's a good point. And it's funny. So we deal with larger brands, and so usually it's 1, 2, or 3 or 4 in the category. And so I haven't recently dealt with a relatively small brand like you're talking about, and certainly have very different challenges. One of the things though that you brought up as well is if you're a challenger brand, and if there's many of the other brands are much bigger than you, how does that challenger brand get enough awareness to get that 7 seconds that you were talking about?
Well, there's 2 parts to that question, right? It's the message itself, right? Because if you have a powerful message that is delivered in 7 seconds, okay, that's the first thing. It will work. So then how do you get that message in front of people? So challenger brand marketing is many times an exercise of working backwards. So a lot of clients will come to us and say, "Oh, we want to be on social media. We want to be doing this. We want billboards. We want that." And we'll kind of give them a little timeout sign and say, wait a minute, why first? And challenger brand marketing kind of is this reverse engineering when it comes to budget. If your budget is level A all the way up to level Z, right, that's going to be a different strategy. So we work with our clients to identify the marketing resources they have and then work backwards to create the program, the strategic outbound program that will generate the greatest return for their budget. Because the idea, think of a ladder, right? A challenger brand goes from the bottom rung to the first one, to the second, to the third, to the fourth. That's the process. You don't try to jump to the 20th, which a lot of companies try to do. And as a result, they don't have enough money to do that when they start. They will have enough money to do that, in due time. But let's get there in a strategic way versus outspending yourself or being in markets that are too big. So we like to always be the big player in the field, and the way we control that is by the size of the field, right? If we shrink the field, let's say if that's a global brand, they can't go globally now, and maybe they can't afford the continental U.S. Maybe they could only go in the Western states to start. Let's just say, as an example. Now they have enough money to make an impact in that area, whether it's geographic, target audience. There's all sorts of different platforms in which to identify that. But it's being realistic with what you have to spend. It's that. And the other thing I would say is even guerrilla brands can be challenger brands. I can give you multiple examples, but I'll give you one in particular of a company. And if I told you their name, you would know them. And I know your listeners would know them as well, but they're number one in the medical industry, cancer care. They're the Gorilla brand. They were going into a sub-market within the medical field that they weren't known for. And their problem, and they tried to get in this market, and their problem was people didn't believe them. They didn't believe them because they knew them as this guerrilla brand, and they were marketing as a guerrilla brand. They just kind of, spend their way into this market. It failed. It completely failed. So they brought us on to position them as a challenger brand within this sub-market. And we took them through this whole process I just described to you. And this is about 3 years ago. And I'm happy to say now they are the guerrilla brand in this sub-market. And it was just a different mindset of marketing, understanding how you go about marketing. Because it's not always about just pouring money. Because it's interesting. One thing I've noticed that's happening more and more in almost all industries, all of us as consumers, you, me, your listeners, we're all consumers. We're all people. We're all human beings. And the one thing we don't want anyone to sell us, right? The moment we believe someone is trying to sell us something is the moment you lose trust. Right? It's the moment their credibility starts to wane. It's the moment you kind of step back and go, no, I don't know if I want that. So we believe, and what we see is the new form of marketing, especially when it comes to challenger brand marketing. It's this concept of selling without selling. So how do you sell something without the audience thinking you're selling them something? Because it's kind of an odd thought. But we find it very true. So it's how do you do this? How do you create marketing strategies that are believable, are trustworthy, speak to my sensitivities and speak to what I want? That's so much more relevant than it was just a few years ago.
Yeah. Let me flip the table on you. And that is, let's say that I am the market leader and I see a challenger brand really starting to take off. How do I, as the market leader now, defend myself against that challenger brand in those niches where they've chosen and actually have a very good story and are they're doing very well there?
Well, yeah, I tell you the first thing, and this is we work with our clients all the time to create that problem and be that problem. and the way that usually gets solved is they buy us.
Oh,
and
that's a good one.
yeah, they buy us, and believe that that is always something we talk about. And usually when you're in that position and you are irritating a gorilla brand by that much for them to take notice, they will pay a premium for you. And
Mm.
so over the years, we have many happy clients that that never had to work another day in their lives, because that was part of the vision, and that was sometimes you don't always set out to do that, but that's certainly something that we enjoy doing is irritating our guerrilla brands.
I like that. That's definitely a good outcome. So very good. So now you also talk about the term underdog brands. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, Underdog is a challenger brand.
Okay.
It's similar to it's just a different terminology, but yeah, that's it's again it's this concept of thinking differently. Marketing isn't always about spending as much money as you can. I believe the more money you spend, the faster things happen. But it doesn't necessarily mean you have to spend the most money in the marketplace.
Mm.
As a challenger brand, have to define the market, and we have to define where it is we can play, where we can win. Okay, because it's about winning. And like I said earlier, challenger brands don't get two chances. Well, they do, but you should never approach it like that. You should approach it
Right.
as if you get
Right.
one shot. So it's our approach is very systematic. It's very methodical. It's based on a series of win after win after win after win, so you can grow. It's like we're talking baseball earlier. It's
Mm.
you don't have to hit a grand slam, or if you just get a single every single time. All right, think about the inning where you get all nine batters hitting singles. That's a pretty damn good inning, right? And singles are
Yeah.
a lot more realistic, right, than hitting a home run. So that and yeah, Challenger Brand. I'm not saying they don't hit a home run, but they do. But you got to have this mindset of just constantly moving forward,
Mm.
constantly moving ahead, and doing it within your means, doing it always within your niche, doing it within what makes you unique, and utilizing the data that's been created in that discovery process that we discussed. Because that discovery process, I said, it is the most important thing. It's the answer to your questions. When people come to me and say, "Well, marketing doesn't work," I would argue it does work. You're just not utilizing it correctly. And what utilizing it usually means is you're not saying the right thing, and you're not saying it in a way that is motivating people to respond. You're not saying it in a way that they need to hear you say it. You're not saying it in a way that is unique to you. It's the message is so critical.
Yeah. Interesting. I'm wondering because certain media channels are easier to get a message across than others. So if you were going to do connected TV or CTV, you have pretty good control of many of the senses. Certainly visual and oral and what have you. But when you think about that to get your message across, that's one thing. But then when you think about other media channels, so like paid search, you really only have whatever it is, 40 or 50 characters to get your message across. How does what you're talking about change as you're going through the different media channels like that?
Well, I would say the message never changes. The message does not change. What will change is the nuance in which you use it, depending on the channel. And the channels are a big part of what we do. Most of our clients were very involved in their daily marketing activity. So there are certain channels that are better for brand building, certain channels better for lead generation, or any sort of a call to action. So we typically, our clients don't always have the luxury of spending money just to build brand. So our typical client, we're building brand and generating leads simultaneously using the same channels. So as a result, we tend to get very picky on what channels we use. You talked about Google. Okay, Google. You have search and you have organic and paid. Well, Google paid search, believe it or not, is not for many of our clients. It's not working as well as it used to. Connected TV talked about is on the upswing. Facebook, slash Instagram, I'll kind of connect them together, are still the best source for lead generation for what we find. And when you have these changes in algorithms and changes in security, like I say, the iPhone recently had, that affected Facebook quite a bit. But it just means our digital team is challenged to find new ways of generating leads. Pinterest is great, but it doesn't generate for our clients, the activity, the ROI that we need. So to answer your question, it depends on the client. It depends on what we're trying to achieve, but usually it depends on how do we generate the greatest ROI for the money we're spending. Because we analyze every 30 days, we look back in a very, very detailed way to see, okay, we spent $1, how much money did we get back? And if we don't deliver a greater return than that $1, then we have work to do. But
well, and you can, and because you're monitoring it every 30 days, you have the ability to very quickly learn from your mistakes and veer right or veer left to it to be able to correct that. So I agree with that 100%. And not to tout my book, but in my marketing machine book, that's a critical piece, is getting that fast feedback and the fast learn process. So you get rid of any mistakes that you make, learn from those mistakes, and then make the change in direction where you need to.
Right. Yeah. You get it. You understand. It's not always about throwing more money at it. It's more about adjusting the money you have and making sure it's going in the right places.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Before I get to my last question, anything else that you wanted to mention?
Well, we talked about messaging and it's I just want to bring up a point about websites, if I may, because I believe a website is probably one of the most important, if not the most important, marketing tools companies have. And they sometimes overlook how critical they are. And we discussed this 7-second rule, where when somebody comes to your website, first of all, it needs to be designed for someone who's never seen you before, who's maybe saw an ad or heard of you and just coming to your website, and they're going to give you 7 seconds to convince them that you are better than their competitors, you have what I want, and this is the place I need to be. Because after that 7 seconds, if you convince them, then they will engage in a conversation by going deeper into your site. But we see websites all the time either assume people know who they are, or bombard the visitor with so much information and the theory of, right, if you try to say everything, you say nothing, or they do the opposite and don't say enough. So, websites are the modern day retail store, the flagship store, right? You've got to get somebody there, and that's where you're going to sell them on who you are, whatever your message is. So it's utilizing and understanding that tool. So that's a common thing that we see with many companies, not just challenger brands. I mean, we have guerrilla clients as well. Even they assume a lot, and assuming is a risky thing, and usually a very expensive endeavor.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I like your 7-second rule. I think it's kind of like, to me, that first 7 seconds buys you the next 60 seconds, which buys you the next maybe 1 hour. And each step has to be very clearly defined so that you get them hooked with the first 7 seconds, and then they go, tell me more. And then you have the opportunity to now dig deeper into that next round. And I think you're right. I think it's hard, especially for a smaller challenger brand, to have a website that, may have pieces of it for existing customers and then pieces of it for new and customers that are the first time engaging with the brand. And so there's, definitely some interesting aspects of website design to be able to handle that.
Yeah, and there are ways to do that, and it depends on the client. But when it comes to the message, right? The core message for any company should answer 4 questions. and it should answer 4 questions very quickly and concisely. And those questions are, who are you? What do you do? What makes you special? In other words, what makes you different from everybody else? And the 4th question, probably the most important question, is what's in it for me? All right, the view, the person. And it's incredible when you see most messaging platforms don't include the last one. They just talk, you just talk about us. Here's who we are. Aren't we great? Well, tell me what that means for me. Because at the end of the day, I'm the person that matters. So that we've created those parameters as the core messaging, and the discovery process helps us determine the answers to those 4 questions, so we can string together messaging that is based on facts, based on data from your customers, is true to your brand internally, and is unique from your competitors.
Yeah, as you were talking about that, Jeffrey Moore, Crossing the Chasm, comes up, and your first bowling pin, and then I can't remember if he had 4 or 6 W's. What is it? Who's it for? Why is it different? What's it in for me? And then there's a couple of other ones that you can add on there, and I think that is so critical. Kudos to you as well, and that if you can get that message across, that is what's critical. And I like your point as well. Is it what's in it for me? What's the value I'm going to get, whether it's ROI or emotional satisfaction or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah. And the hardest part of all that is doing it in a concise way.
Yeah.
There's my favorite quote is from Mark Twain, and Mark Twain years ago said, "I would have written you a shorter note, but I did not have the time."
I know, exactly.
So it's easy, right? It's easy to describe your company in a page or 2 pages. It's easy. But you know what? That kind of gets back to the concept of, you say too much, you say nothing. So how do you take that 2 pages of information and just narrow it down to, a few words, 7 seconds, or an elevator pitch that should be no more than 30 words or 30 seconds long. How do you do that? That's difficult, if not impossible. Yeah, for companies to do it on their own.
Yeah,
without a process, without a structured process to get you there.
Yeah. Now, I was always wondering who wrote that. So it's Mark Twain, because I quote that once in a while. And thank you for that. That's very helpful. So before
thank Mark.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for helping me to find it. So, all right. So my last question is, I like to ask what advice would you give to an up and coming marketer for them to be successful?
Somebody looking to get in the industry?
Well, either coming at a college wanting to go into marketing, or changing over from whatever they were doing and getting into marketing.
Understand your passion and spend time, really think about, what is it that moves you? What do you love doing? What is it that motivates you? Because if you are one of the lucky few, like I'm sure you are a guy, I am, or you're not working for a living, you're doing what you love for a living, that to me is, you are the luckiest person in the world, because you will become successful at doing whatever you love to do because you have a passion for it. If you don't have a passion for something, that's a different approach. That's the first thing I would say. And the second thing is look at the trends and how do you create value for yourself? What makes you different? We talked about this challenger brand process. People are challenger brands too, right? Someone coming into a new industry is a challenger brand. So, who are you? What do you do? What makes you special? And how can you help the person you're talking to, the person you're looking to get a job from, or the industry you're looking to enter? Go through that process for yourself and differentiate yourself, because it's all about being unique. It's all about you being unique, and challenger brands and people, we all have to be unique. We all have to have our unique position, our unique messaging, and that's how you'll get noticed. So those are the 2 main things: is find your passion and how do you position yourself to be unique.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think you're right. If you are very passionate about what you're doing, then it's a lot less about work, and it's a lot more about the fun you're having and the difference in that you're being able to make because you're so passionate about it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, John, really, thank you so much. I, really appreciate it, and so glad we were able to spend some time today. And I really appreciate what you're talking about in terms of what it takes to, really be successful as a challenger brand. Because, when you think about it, just about every category has probably 10 challenger brands to one market leader. And so most companies are challengers. It's very infrequent that you actually are working for the market leader. So where can folks go to learn more about you and your company, and how to be a successful challenger brand?
Oh, well, yes, certainly. They can go to our website, which is gumas.com, gumas.com. A lot of great content there. You can subscribe to our e-newsletter, our blogs. I mean, just really good hands-on how-to marketing information. You can follow me on social media, just John Gumas. Or if you want to just if someone has a question and wants to just ask me a question, here's this, I'm doing this and it's not working. Do you have all they have to do is mention your name, and I'll be happy to give them some free advice for whatever free advice. The word free is always kind of quite, what's that worth? But I promise it will be worth their time. But my email is jgumas@gumas.com. So the letter J, Gumas @gumas.com.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. So gumas.com, gumas.com. And certainly, like I said, there's so many more challenger brands out there. And even as a market leader, I'm sure there's something that you can learn from John's site. So with that, again, John, thank you so much. And to the audience, please stay tuned for many other videos in this series. On the backstory of marketing, please visit marketingmachine.prorelevant.com, and you'll be able to download the first chapter of my book and other valuable excerpts. And if you like this episode, please rate it with 5 stars. Again, John, thank you so much.
It's a real pleasure, Guy. Thank you.
Thank you.